Lucky number 7, and the winner is Shuro, as you guys can see by the title, unless you're the YouTube owner, because you can just go fuck yourself. Obviously, we're counting down all the raid bosses from 10 to 1. So now we get to number 7, which is Shuro, the second boss of the Last Wish raid. Now, in prior videos, if you haven't watched it by now, there are 10 criteria in which we're rating all the raid bosses. In each one of these videos, since I have 10 criteria, I'm actually going to go into a little bit of detail as to what the criteria is in one particular video. So in this video, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but we're just going to kick it right off, get to the first category that we have in every single one of these raids: communication. How much communication do you need for the Shuro fight? Reality is you do not need a lot. Essentially, you can set your roles before you even get in there. Matter of fact, you have to set your roles before you get in there. You need 3 people on crystals, 4 people on the puzzle. So essentially, you just have to pick those roles before you start the fight. And then once you're in the fight, the only communication that you really need is going to be during the puzzle portion, where you have to say, well, number 1, please switch with number 2, 2 and 3, switch, whatever the case is. That's really the only time that you have to communicate, aside from saying crystals or whatever the hell it is. There's not a lot of communication when it comes to the Shuro fight. Unique elements. This one scored a 4. Out of all the raids that we've ever had, there's always a certain point of a timer on every single one of these raids. Whether it was Valkaur, where you had to do all those parts before he enraged. Almost every boss has had an enraged timer where you have to do something before the fucker blows up. Shuro, though, is a straight speed run for 6 fucking times. 6 times you have to do the same process over and over and over again, plus the 2 puzzles thrown in between that. There is no raid boss like this. Now, the plates, the crystals, we've all seen those kind of elements before. That wasn't too unique, which is why I couldn't give this a total 5. But the fact that you have to speed run this and have 6 sections of damage just for her is very unique. Across 3 floors of damage? Oh, absolutely. Shuro is very high in unique elements. Something we have not seen in almost any raid, strike, or PvE activity to this date. Damage unlock. This is essentially a 1. There's nothing to do. You just have to kill the ads. That's it. You just have to make sure every fucking thing is dead. Hop on crystals, shoot each other. You unlock the damage phase. You do have to do it 6 times. But essentially, to unlock her damage phase, there really isn't much to this one. Variety of strategy, I gave this a 2. For the most part, you have to get up close to her. Yes, you can snipe, you can use your sleeper, you can try to whisper her from a mile away, but the reality is 3 people are going to be on the crystals and they're going to be right up in her asshole. For the most part, what are you going to do? You're going to use your shotgun, you're going to use your eye close, you're going to use your Acreus, your threat level. Whatever it takes to get up close, since you're right there, that's going to be the variety that you use. I've used Thunderlord, but for the most part, almost every time I've run the Shuro encounter recently, I use 2 shotguns and a Thunderlord. That has been my loadout. There's almost no variety when it comes to how to beat her. Direct threat level of the boss. So this one, again, I gave it 2. For the most part, she doesn't directly threaten you. When she goes to her plates and she moves the 6 different times, she has 3 attacks. She has a direct blast that can hit you, which is a pain in the ass if you're doing the challenge mode. Anybody who does challenge mode knows exactly what the fuck it is, but we're not rating challenge mode here. She has her pop-up attack where she knocks you straight up in the air, which is usually followed by her push mechanic. So if she pops you up in the air when you're close to a ledge and she pushes you out, you have a chance to fall off the map. But otherwise, if you stay far away from her, there's really no direct threat level. Mobility of the fight, and this is something that I absolutely want to talk about and the topic that I want to focus on. This is a 5. Unquestionably, this is a 5. This is one of the few bosses where you are always moving, because there are 6 sections to this fight. Now, in almost every fight up to this point that we've ever had, with the exception of maybe Axis, almost every single raid boss requires every single person to stand in one spot and just start doing damage. Think of Atheon. Usually people got to the center platform, they had the person hold the relic, and everybody went to town with Galahorns or whatever the hell they wanted to do, or Thunderlords at the time. Think of Crota. Everybody sat on the bridge, you fired off your rockets, you had the one motherfucker with a sword do some damage. You had Bosik, for the most part, everyone got in the middle, same thing, do all your damage. Axis, you had to move up on him, get into him, and start doing a little bit of damage. Callus, you basically jump from platform to platform and do 4 levels of damage. And then Argos, you basically stayed on the same platform. Every boss is virtually the same, where you stand in the same spot. The mobility of this fight, though, you are constantly moving. And the fact that you are constantly moving shows that they came up with something relatively unique. You need to be on the move, and yes, you do get up right up close to her, but all 6 people have to be moving with a uniform flow in order to get from one place to another. You have to kill them at the first platform, move all the way to the second platform, killing all the ads. You have to do the puzzle correctly. You have to jump up those platforms correctly. Otherwise, you're the one asshole sitting in the back getting fucked over. You basically move this entire speed run of a fight. So yes, mobility is very important to me in a fight because it requires the team to do something different. It isn't the lazy strategy of everybody sit in a well in the same spot and just do damage to a boss in this one location. So I absolutely rate this as the highest of any of the raid bosses. And that's a very direct counter argument to the next point, which is recovery. What happens if one person fucks up? This is a one. Oh, the Shuro Chi challenge, man, because everything is on a timer, because this is basically a speed run, one person can fuck you up pretty badly. And there are a number of times where teams just absolutely wipe because one person made a mistake, whether it's the puzzle room, whether somebody got blasted by a fouling shield, whether Shuro Chi threw them off the map and now we can't revive a motherfucker. It is very hard to recover from a mistake from Shuro Chi. Now, look, you can have a death. You could get somebody that dies on a platform or a plate because we waited a little bit too long. Yeah, there's a little bit of recovery from that. But we're talking catastrophic recovery where somebody messes up on a plate, somebody messes up on a platform. It's pretty much a wipe at that point. Teammates needed for this challenge. I've seen teams 3-man this. Basically what you do in the puzzle room is you have one person slide, but the reality is you need 4 teammates. 3 are going to do the crystal without question. That is undeniable. And the 4th person is obviously going to be in the puzzle room because you need 4 people to stand on the plates. The other 2, you can just run and do damage the entire time. But if you have 4 people that are doing all the mechanics, those will be the only 4 people you need. Difficulty at launch. This was a 4. And it was only a 4 because of how tricky it was to realize. You had to be right 6 fucking times. You know, when we see a boss for the first time in a raid, there's obviously the idea of unlocking how do we get past the mechanics. Once you get past the mechanics, it's like, okay, now that we got the mechanics, we just have to get this right, and then we could get to this phase or this damage point. With Shuro Chi, you have to be right 6 times in a row. That is difficult because all it took was one mess up at launch and you were totally fucked. Now again, we still have this issue of the difficulty of the Last Wish raid, which I'm going to talk about when we get to Riven. But essentially, this was a pain in the ass for people that were first doing this because all you had was one chance and one little fuck up would wipe you. Whether it was the puzzles, whether it was the crystals, it was very difficult at launch because of the pressure that timer had you on. Final criteria, rewards, and I gave this a 1. At best, what did you get out of this? A masterwork transfiguration, which nobody fucking used? That gun was horrible. I mean, scout rifles in general need an absolute buff, but that one alone fucking sucked. There was nothing great about that gun, other than if you got the masterwork version, you got 7 cores. So essentially, for those who wanted masterwork cores or enhancement cores, whatever they wanted to call that shit, that was the best thing you possibly could have got. Sure, you could have gotten armor, but it wasn't like a Seed of Light. It wasn't like 1,000 voices or something like that. The reward that you got from Shuro Chi was pretty crappy compared to some of the other portions of the Last Wish raid. So overall, I could not give that a high score. But when it comes to the score itself for Shuro Chi, grand total, 26 points, and that's a pretty good jump from the prior bosses. Prior bosses were 21, 22, and 23, but we now see a 3-point jump showing that Shuro Chi was actually a pretty decent raid boss. So next up on the list will be number 6. It's actually another Last Wish boss. You guys will get to see that next. As always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all the good shit, and I'll see you guys in the next video.